Over the last few months, international fans visiting for the World Cup and other major soccer championships have been sharing their observations about the US. For the most part, their comments have been highly flattering, but watching these videos made me think about my own time in Italy, France, and Spain. I was struck by how content many people seemed with the status quo. There is a deep traditional acceptance of one's place there that you rarely see in the United States. In the US, we live on a different baseline. We are almost always dissatisfied with where we currently are. This graph illustrates that gap. While one culture prioritizes contentment, the other is defined by a constant, restless drive to reach for something better. Standing still in this environment is often viewed as a problem. Socioeconomic stagnation isn't seen as peaceful acceptance, it's perceived as something going wrong. Whether this restlessness is a good or a bad thing is a personal judgment. But this cultural dissatisfaction is the specific force that fuels the way our society moves forward. To understand how this works, it helps to look at upward mobility as a three-part mechanism. It requires a specific environment, a high-pressure catalyst, and a multiplier to gain momentum. The first component, the environment, is defined by what isn't there. There are no institutional blockades or walls preventing someone from improving their situation. The catalyst is the initial energy required to get the gears turning. It usually demands immense sacrifice and hard work at the lowest socioeconomic level. My grandfather provided that catalyst on a 40-acre farm in North Georgia. He and his children worked that difficult red clay soil with mules and a plow, enduring years of manual labor to create a starting point for the family. My father carried that momentum forward. He served in the Navy for 6.5 years during World War II, and though he returned home with only a high school education, he was determined to reach further than the farm. Because the environment lacked structural barriers, that brutal labor on the farm wasn't a life sentence. It served as the ignition spark for the generations that followed. That brings us to the multipliers. This is the stage where previous labor is converted into the capital needed for the next leap. My father's business was the first multiplier. He built a company from the ground up, eventually providing a livelihood for half a dozen other families. That business provided the stability my family needed to shift focus from survival to education. He used that capital to ensure his children had more opportunities than he did, encouraging all of us to attend college and earn our bachelor's degrees. The momentum continued with my cousins, one of whom leveraged that family foundation to earn her PhD. We see this same mechanism at work when immigrants arrive in the country today. They plug directly into this historical framework. They often start with the hardest, lowest-paying jobs available. Like my grandfather, they are providing the initial high-pressure catalyst required to start the engine. This generational compounding makes that bottom-rung labor a high-yield investment. The parents' hard work serves as a guarantee that their children have the opportunity to become anything they choose. International observers often focus on the promise of instant individual wealth, but the actual data suggests a much longer arc. The system functions as a multi-generational relay race. As this timeline shows, many of the most successful people in the country today are just 1 or 2 generations removed from the laborers and immigrants who started at the bottom. This cycle makes it difficult to understand the mindset of simply accepting a destined place in the world. When you believe the deck isn't stacked against you, your lot in life is something you can actually change. This leads to a question about your own trajectory. Are you passively accepting your current status quo, or are you actively building the capital for the generation coming after you? I'm turning 80 this year, and I've seen this progression play out many times. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you're willing to share, tell me about your family's generational progression in the comments.
I have been spending the last month or so watching a lot of videos recorded by Europeans who came for the World Soccer Championship games and their comments about the USA. In about 2014, I toured a little bit of Europe, Italy, France and Spain. And my reaction was I was really shocked. The last time I had been in Europe was in 1969, coming back from my Air Force duty in the Middle East. Having been in the Middle East, when I got to Europe, it seemed like heaven on earth. But anyway, I wanted to respond to some of the things I've seen on the videos made by Europeans. For the most part, they were flattering to us here in the U.S., and that I appreciate. But from what I saw in my brief time in Europe is the whole demeanor of the citizens of the United States are far different than in Europe. I guess it's tradition, but the people there that I met in the brief time I was there seemed to be very content with the status quo. That's never true here in the U.S. We always are dissatisfied with where we're at. We always want to strive for better. And it really drives us. Now, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, that's for the individual to decide. But I have to say that there's a large segment of the world population who would give anything to be here, simply because they can strive to better their lives. Not only are there no impediments to doing that, but it's expected. You're just standing still in this country and not getting ahead, then there's something wrong with you. My granddad had a 40-acre farm in North Georgia, red clay soil, that he and his children worked with mules and plow. It saw some really hard times, but they really encouraged their kids to do better. My father, who served for 6.5 years in the Navy, all during World War II, came home without anything more than a high school education. But he started his own business and that business was able to support the livelihood of 5 or 6 families. And as for his children and his brothers and sisters' families, we were all encouraged to go to college and do better than he did. And to me, he was an outstanding father. So I did get my bachelor's degree. I have a cousin who got her PhD, and the point of this is not to brag about myself or my family. The point is that there was no blockades to prevent me from doing that. So when you have somebody come into the country, an immigrant, for example, who's had not much educational opportunity, well, they're going to get the lowest paid and the hardest jobs. But even if they never succeed in doing better for themselves, their children, they're providing for their children the opportunity to do and be anything, which is, I think, what most parents strive for. And for that, I applaud them, because we certainly need people to fill the lower paying jobs. I worked hard to get ahead so that I wouldn't have to do those jobs. But people who are coming in, if not for themselves, at least for their children, they have an opportunity to be anything. I mean, if you look at some of the famous people in this country, rich people, a lot of them are just one or two generations from immigrants. So I think this is not what's appreciated or understood. All those people who are commenting on what America is like, what the USA is like. We use the term America, and yet America encompasses the whole hemisphere. But at any rate, I just wanted to put in my 2 cents so that people who are looking at those reviews, comments, can get some idea of what's going on. I will be turning 80 years old in January. So I've seen a lot, good and bad, in this country. But I never felt like that the deck was stacked against me. I always felt like if I worked hard, I could improve my lot in life. And from what I've seen in Europe, I'm making a broad assumption here, which is probably not warranted at all. And your comments about it would be appreciated. But there seemed to be an acceptance, people accepting this was their lot in life. This is what their destiny was going to be. It was going to always be that. And there's no way of getting ahead. And I can't understand that. Maybe you all can enlighten me in the comments. I appreciate taking this few minutes of your time.